Right. Swarms suck. They just suck. In 5e, in old source, they suck. I'm going to hopefully show you how to make them not suck so much, and that's a good thing. So we're going to cover principles for building swarms that are really easy to use, but make them scary as hell. We're going to cover what things your players can do against them and give a couple of examples, and we're going to do it in less than 10 minutes. So stick around if that sounds good to you. So let's jump across to the whiteboard. Okay, I suppose maybe the starting point is to quickly look at a bee swarm in 5e. So here's a bee swarm from the SRD. You've got all the jazz of the hit points and stats, and it tells you can't grapple a swarm. Duh. And the only thing that's really, really interesting here is a swarm can hold the space of another creature. And it can get through small openings. Okay, so both of them are cool, but it's not really interesting. It makes it a little bit different, but it's just a weird another type of creature. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you some principles where we're actually going to use the hit die to calculate how heavy the swarm is, how much it can hit, and then as you kind of go through stuff, it's going to get progressively weaker, but it's going to have a couple of cool abilities along the way, and it's going to be easy to run. So let's jump back to the whiteboard and let's start the swarm principles. Oh, come back here. Right. This is the 5e thing. Swarms can occupy, we went through that line, it's a bit boring. We're going to make it into smaller bits that are a little bit more interesting. So a swarm can occupy a space of another creature. We've got that. It can move through a tiny opening. Depending on what swarm it is, obviously some rat can move through a different size opening than but it's as small as its smallest component part, really. What we're going to do is we're going to use the hit die that a swarm has, and for every hit die it has, it's going to add another +1 to what it can to its the hit bonus. So a 5 hit die swarm is going to be initially start with +5 to hit, which makes it a little scarier, which is kind of cool. It can also join another swarm. So if you have a 3 hit die swarm here and a 3 hit die swarm here, sorry, my hands need to get closer. They could join and become a 6 hit die swarm, which again is like +6 to hit, which becomes a lot scarier than 2 single +3s. And also the swarm damage is dependent on the hit die as well. So when we're looking at the swarm damage, it's going to be, for this particular swarm, it will be X amount of dice per hit die. So you're actually going to be getting a pile of dice and rolling them at the start, and it's going to get less and less as you go along. So let's give you an example of that bee swarm. Okay. Instead of doing the 4.5 hit points per hit die, because it's maths, I don't want maths, I want easy at the table. I'm going to do 4 hit points, and this has +1 to con, so it's going to be 5 hit points per hit die, which is nice and easy. A 5 hit die monster is going to be 25 hit points. So it's going to have 25 hit points. What we've said with this swarm is it can occupy the space of another creature. I'm going to say for this swarm, it can ignore metal armor. Can you imagine somebody with plate armor trying to fight off bees? There's going to be, or wasps. It's going to be pointless. They're going to get in underneath the skin. It's probably actually going to be worse for them. So their armor gets ignored. Immediately, a fighter changes their attitude so fast because they've got to do things differently. And it makes sense because somebody big, clunky, and swinging around is going to be much easier and much bigger target. And again, this is the merge with another swarm. If you had 2 swarms and they went away and they merged, players are it's going to be tension. And D&D is all about driving tension. And again, what we're giving with these principles here is they work for both Old Source Reign and for 5e. So what I'm going to say is 1d4 hit points per hit die, and we'll go through how that works now. And again, this is probably more for 5e than Old Source, because this will be brutal in Old Source because the hit points are less. A DC 12 con save to or get an additional d4 hit points poison damage per hit die. Okay, so it kind of works the same, but it's a little bit more brutal at the start and easier as you go along. Okay, so to give you an idea, I would be doing 5 bar gates on the table to count hit points. And every one of those, you're just knocking 1 down from your 5 to hit and your 5 hit die. Really super easy. So if it's over 20 hit points and it hasn't had 5 damage yet, you're doing +5 for your attacks and you're rolling 5 d4 hit dice. The math is super simple and easy to run. You've got fighters now running away from this because their armor doesn't matter. You've got swarms being able to join. They actually start to behave like swarms. So your players will have to react to them like something different than just another monster that holds up space. So we're going to take another one here and do it slightly differently, or apply the same principles and come up something different. So an amoeba swarm. These are slightly bigger. They do acid damage. They're resistant to certain types of damages, which again is kind of cool. and they can swim. I don't really care. Yeah, this thing does acid damage. 4d4. It's a 8 hit die monster, and it does 4d4 acid damage, and it goes down as you go down. Okay, like it has a -1 con, I think. Yeah, -1 con. So if we were doing our hit points, we would be doing 4 hit points -1, so it'd be 3 hit points per hit die. So I'm going to give you 2 ways to run this. The way that I would run it, and the way that if you're following these principles. And the way that I would run it would be cheating, as always. So you would do 8 hit dies at 3 hit points per monster. You'd mark out 3 little 3s as you go along, and it'd be 24 hit points. Now for this, again, I would do the merging because that's just cool. Probably to tie up the damage more, it would be 1d6 hit points per 2 hit die. To be honest, what I would realistically do is I would just run it like this because the numbers are cool and the maths are easy and the numbers don't make a hell of a lot of difference. In the long run of things, it's the unique abilities of creatures and monsters that actually matter. But what I would do to make to this one, because I'm bad and it's cool, is I would make the armor, the acid, dissolve armor. So anytime one of these things has a successful hit on a person, you could just reduce their AC permanently for whatever armor they have by 1. That's one of the things you could do. I wouldn't do it by 1. I'd do it by a D2. So I'd be rolling a D4 and halving it, because rolling dice is cool. Rolling dice makes tension. We want tension at the table. So all of a sudden you've got this monster that is going to be hard to hit because it's immune to so many things, but it damages armor, and that is scary. That's one of the reasons why rust monsters scare the crap out of people. So that's those principles taken to 2 boring monsters, and we've made something that's kind of cool. So players, fighting swarms. This just comes down to common sense then. If you're doing a ranged attack with an arrow, disadvantage with the attack, you're not going to shoot arrows at a bunch of bees. If you're doing an area of effect thing, give them an advantage. Don't just take. Make sure you're giving at the same time. Blades. You could just do disadvantage for the attack. I kind of like the idea of doing disadvantage for the damage. Get them to roll the damage twice and take the minimum one. It feels better and different. And different's nice. Fire damage. Fire damage does double. So you're going to see them immediately once they start to figure that out, dropping their swords. If they have to run from the swarm, they're leaving swords. That's kind of cool as well. And crit fail. If somebody is in a swarm and you do a nat 1, you hit them. Okay? I wouldn't even have them in these kind of situations. Often I make them roll an attack on the player. I wouldn't even do that in these situations, but it's up to yourself. I would just get them to roll damage. You imagine you're swinging your sword at someone's head because there's a bunch of wasps around it. It's going to hurt them. So, have we done this in less than 10 minutes? Yes, we have. One other thing that's really important. Thank you. This video was suggested by none other than Adventures by Dice, or Adventures with Dice. So Rob is amazing. His channel link is below. Follow him, give him some love because he's awesome. And he's on our forums, and he asked how you would deal with it. If you have stuff that you want to cover, stick it below. Ask me. I'd love to answer it, see if I can help, and you can get my take on it. So ask below, join Discord, do like we're around. If you like the video, like it, or sub, or don't. Either way. Catch you later. Bye.